Welcome to another edition of Magic Gaming Esports Academy webinar series presented by Florida Blue. I'm Kendra Douglas, and today we got a pretty special guest. This is a good one because we're talking to Jonah Edwards, who is the general manager and head coach of the Orlando Magic NBA2K League. And Jonah, welcome to the webinar. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to finally be here. You know, long list of guests before I finally got the invitation. So I'm happy to be here.
Hey, it's the perfect timing. It's the great thing that we have you on. We both got back from Boston, so we're both back now in the sunny weather. But first, let's kind of get into your story a little bit. Just talk a little bit about how you got into gaming and where it started for you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess gaming. The first thing I'd say is, like, obviously growing up as a kid, I feel like my era, everyone was a gamer to a certain degree. At least, I have 3 older siblings, so my oldest brother, I remember, this is a weird memory, but I remember him telling me to decline penalties when I used to play against him in Madden when we were like literal children. I didn't know what the penalties were, so I was trusting him, and then got to a point where I was beating him at everything. I was probably like 7 or 8, and he's 8 years older than I am. So I got to that point where he was getting worked, and then it kind of went from there.
And so, I mean, from there, I mean, were you just kind of like, all right, this is kind of where I want to go, and this is kind of like what I want to do? I mean, to know that you are like a head coach, like, where was that moment where you're kind of like, all right, this could be something I do like professionally?
Gosh, I mean, that moment didn't come until I got the offer letter in the mail. I think what's funny is, like, I was always good at playing games. I just was inherently. I think I just understand game strategy in general for any game at a high level, and so game theory, I should say. And so when I was a kid, I was like really good at Madden, and especially NBA2K. Those were my games. I used to travel when I was like 12, 13, 14 to play Madden tournaments. I would like go and win tournaments. Back in that era, they'd host tournaments at Walmart for Madden every year. And there was a time, I think, where when I was 13, I think I went to 3 different Walmarts in the same day and won all 3 tournaments. And just to rack up gift cards for no other reason, just to say that I did it. So like, it was that for me. It was just fun. My buddies knew, but I'll tell you, if you went to like high school with me, you probably didn't even know I was like a gamer, really. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I was like involved in everything, class president, all that stuff. So most people didn't even know gaming was my thing. And then college comes, you get free time. Obviously, a lot of time spent on the game, and yeah, it was a lot, but it was all for fun. It was never I'm going to do this for a living. It was just like, it was fun, but for an outlet for competition. I'm a really competitive guy, as most in this field are. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of just started from that.
And also, a little fun fact, you were a track athlete, so you have been competitive. Well, discus throw, that's still track.
So it counts. We count it, Kendra. We count it. Yeah, I did that. I played basketball, obviously, and coaching runs in my family a little bit. Actually, my older brother was, when I was a freshman on the freshman basketball team in my high school, he coached me. He played, basketball his whole life, and my dad used to coach him when he was a kid. And so it kind of runs in the family. And, I'm from Indiana. Everyone knows basketball. And so gaming, was a big thing for me. And then obviously basketball was too. I was such a basketball fan. Like, even in middle school, I think the only thing I wore to school was like retro basketball jerseys. I mean, there was one point that I would wear a different Team USA jersey to school: Magic Johnson, Patrick Ewing, Larry Bird. Like, I just had them all, and that was just all I was into when I was a kid. So it's funny how it's all like come full circle in that way.
I was just going to say that it's like, to know that your families are coaches and you're a coach too, it kind of seemed like it was destined for you to take that route. But for you, talking a little bit about just the basketball side, I mean, what was it like? Like, what were some of your favorite teams growing up? What did you really enjoy about the sport that made you really just want to stick with it and stay kind of in the world of basketball?
It's a good question. I grew up a Knicks fan, so my favorite player, one of my favorite players ever, is probably Patrick Ewing, and that's the jersey I like always was wearing back then. And then really became a huge Spurs fan with Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich. I think I take a lot of inspiration from Pop, and of probably any coach. I would probably say him and Bobby Knight, because I went to the University of Indiana, or sorry, Indiana University. And they're the team I would say, like, I'm the biggest fan of. I watch almost all the IU games when I can, even still. Love IU basketball. I was able to be at the university when they were actually competitive years ago, and they had Cody Zeller and Yogi Ferrell and Noah Vonleh, and guys that have been in the NBA for years and years, and Victor Oladipo and guys like that. So it's really awesome that I was able to experience that. And yeah, I mean, man, if you knew me back then, people would have told you I would have been a basketball coach, but they would
Okay.
not have told you I'd been a gaming coach. I think like that part of it wasn't expected. I always was just a student of the game, very much a nerd, and was not very good. I was never a great athlete. At any point in my life, and that's why 2K is a beautiful thing, and kind of like you don't have to be athletic. I've always been a little chubby. I was great in eighth grade. Then I wasn't 8 inches taller than everybody else. So
So you found a different route, a different avenue. So you said, or like, you got that letter in the mail that you were going to be a coach, but like, when did you have aspirations, or when did you know that like that could be a thing? Like what was the moment where you learned like, oh, I can do this? And what kind of, I guess, well, we'll start there. Like, when did you know you could actually be a coach for a gaming team?
yeah, that one's a tricky question to answer because at the time there weren't roles, there weren't even openings posted. The 2K League, the NBA 2K League was announced back in 2018 that Adam Silver announced that hey, the NBA is going to do this thing. It was a press release that got news coverage on ESPN. I got a whole bunch of people sending it to me like, hey, those that knew I was into NBA 2K at a high level. That's what I was. I was just a 2K player. People knew me from my playing experience, especially when I was back like freshman in college. 2K12 through 2K14 was kind of my best era of games, which really ages me now since 2K24 is what we're playing. But those are my best games. And there was a tournament back in 2K14 that I won with two guys that are also current coaches in the 2K League. And we were all well known in the scene. And it was as simple as like I made a post on Twitter that once the league came out, like, hey, I'm open to coaching roles as well as being a player. So I had a couple of my buddies shout it out on social media. At that time, like as silly as it sounds, everyone in the 2K community had their own unique Twitter profile that was dedicated to NBA 2K. Very weird, but that's the way it was. And so literally the next day after those tweets, I got a DM from the guy working for the Dallas Mavericks, and he reached out and said, hey, let's have an interview, and essentially offered me the job on the spot mid-interview. And then finally got the offer, and it was just convincing my mom that it was a real offer and not a scam. And it was but it was literally just 2018. I was a college senior, sitting in the library at my university and just realizing I'm gonna have to find a way to get in this. I had no idea where I was gonna get in, but I was going to get in, and it worked out much quicker than I ever expected.
It's not perseverance though. I mean, I think that shows your competitive drive, like that you've had for a long time, because you had a goal and you were focused on getting that goal. So for you, I mean, what was the experience like that you took away from being the Dallas Mavericks coach? Like, what did you expect, or what were some things that were new that you didn't even think about, or that you had to learn?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing that's trickiest is like, I have guys on my team that I'm younger than, which, because I was 22 at the time. And so, most of the guys I was younger than. So it was unique coaching guys that, you're in a position of authority and, in a lot of ways taking care of them as like a team manager as well as a head coach, and, but also trying to be their boss. So it's tricky. I think a lot of growth since then as far as like my coaching ability and just like understanding how and when to blur those lines of friend and coach. I think obviously much easier that I have the natural age gap that exists between myself and my team, but that was the biggest thing to probably to learn. And that was not to talk too much about the actual season we had in Dallas, but man, that season was a gauntlet. Like we were a good team early on, and things turned quickly. We had the number one overall pick, and I remember calling that pick in, the first pick in the history of the league, which is really cool in hindsight to be able to say that I did. So just stuff like that. It was an incredible experience, but it was more just, man, hopping in the car, middle of my senior year of college. I'm like, I'm moving to Dallas. I have no idea what I'm going to expect or what I'm going to do, but here we are. And then next few weeks later, I'm like building a gaming facility down in Dallas and drafting a roster of 6 guys to come represent the team. So
Thinking from younger you, just, playing games with your brothers to now, did you ever think that there would be an opportunity that would allow you to be a coach and allow the world of gaming to become this big?
I mean, no, absolutely not. I think like the beautiful thing about like the my era of esports folks is that we did this because we just loved it, and we did not do it because like we saw the end goal was like, hey, I can be a professional, or I can make, $100,000 or whatever it may have been at the time. Like, we just loved doing it. We loved to compete, and so we just did. And that passion is really what was so authentic, and I think like the just lended itself to myself because I just took the job so seriously. Like I just came in. I was the only coach. I was wearing a suit every game. I wore a suit to the office every day for a while. Like it was like, and they're like, someone sat me down. I was like, Jonah, you don't need to wear a suit to the office. Like you can just wear a t-shirt. Like it's all good. And I was like, okay. But to me, that's just what a coach would do. So, it was just such a unique experience in hindsight, being a kid doing that. And looking back now, it's like, man, I cannot believe that I was just in full control at 22 years old to just have the reins over there. But that's how it was, really.
When you came to Orlando, what were some of the things that you took away in that time during Dallas that you were like, all right, I feel more like confident or better, or I have a better understanding of what I want to do? So, what were some of the things you took away from that Dallas job heading here to Orlando?
Yeah, the team we had in Dallas was exceptionally talented. A lot of those guys are still in the league. We have two guys that won Finals MVP, that are still in this league that were on that team, and we weren't a good team. And so, what I realized is just like the power of a group of guys that understand their role and are bought into their specific role. I think it's full circle for the Magic because obviously we're watching in real time with the actual Orlando Magic and they're doing this thing too. But it's more of that than anything. Like getting a team of guys, yeah, you need talent. You do. You need guys that are going to be able to score the ball and make big plays on defense and do the things you need. But more so, you need guys that are bought into a team and a shared goal. And I think that was what our goal was when I came here, was to build a roster that was really a great representative of the Orlando Magic and kind of what they are as an organization. And I like to think we've done that every year. We've seemed to stay out of trouble, at least as an organization and team. We don't have the troublemakers in our league. And yeah, I think that's the direction we're always going to head. But we'll see this year. We might go for skill this year. I'm trying to win now, Kendra. So
There you go. I know. I feel like we'll get into that, but I feel like now where you guys ended the last season, it's like do or die kind of like moments for you guys now. But to we talked a little bit about becoming a coach, and you have a title also of GM. So to have that title, what does that bring, and how does that make you feel to know that you are able and have been able to accomplish so much, that you are a general manager and a head coach of a 2K League team?
it's super humbling, to be honest. Like I'm just a small town kid that, I'm one of six. I was the only one that left my hometown, kind of guy. So it's like, it's humbling in that way. Like it's kind of unbelievable, but I think as ironic as it is, like being a GM is so natural to me. Is silly. Like it's like I'm almost better at that than I ever will be at coaching. And so
Really?
yeah, like I find myself like just being very creative with roster moves and decision making and that right, and scouting and developing players and doing that kind of thing. I think is really what my skills are, more than maybe like coaching on the headset day to day. And so I think I fit in the role naturally, to be honest. But yeah, it's awesome. Making trade calls and doing all that stuff is just not ever what I would have expected to do. Even back when I was hired, back in the first season of the league, there weren't even trades. And so all that has changed, and now we're kind of known as one of the more aggressive trading teams in the league. And yeah, it's awesome to be able to have both titles. Of course, it's awesome, but I maybe would love a head coach someday. We'll see how that works. If we get to that point in the franchise where it's like, hey, like maybe we should have multiple guys in these capacities. So
What's the difference? What has it been like to be the head coach of a team? Like, what has been the most rewarding part of your job? Is it, seeing the growth, or let you answer that one. What's been the most rewarding part of being a coach and a GM?
yeah, what's really unique about esports is that a lot of the guys on the team, are guys, or men or women, but we've only had men in our history. But the men or women on the team, they grow so much as individuals. Like they truly do. And I don't even mean it in, a lot of these guys have never even played on a sports team before. This is their first team environment in their life. They've done
Yeah.
nothing but live at home. They haven't worked a real job, a lot of them. This is their first real taste of real life. And so there's a lot of growth into like, hey, like how to be selfless at times, when to know to speak up, and a closed mouth doesn't get fed, and these things, and learning and helping, teach them these things. It's really fulfilling, to be honest with you, and it's the most beautiful part of my job, no question. Having to show guys how to work an oven and a washer and dryer are the parts of the job I never thought I'd be doing. Luckily, my mom made me do my own laundry since I was 13, so that part I'm down good. So I have to thank my mom for that. But yeah, no, that. But yeah, so it's definitely the growth is just as individuals, and it's of course it's great to win. It's great to like be a part of a locker room that's bought in and can win games, and of course like that's so fulfilling too, because there's a lot of work that goes into it. I think no question here, if you're part of the Magic Gaming team, you're going to work 60-hour weeks minimum during our season. That's just the way it is. And so it's a lot of work. And so when you win, it's fulfilling, but it's more of the growth day to day. And just over long term, I mean, man, I've coached some guys that are just different people 4 or 5 years later than they were. And it's really awesome to see.
I think it's so interesting. You can see definitely the connection and the parallel of like gaming and even the sport, like the basketball team now, because we have so many young guys too. And we have 19-year-old guys who have lived with their parents or gone to college for 1 year. Sometimes they don't know everything. Sometimes they don't know how to do stuff. So you can it's kind of cool to see that parallel of like you as a head coach saying these things. Cause I bet you if you asked like some of the other coaches, they'd be like, yeah, same here. Like I had to teach them like, you're supposed to call this person if you need help and do this. So it's kind of really cool to see those parallels. So let's talk a little bit about like last season. Like your team pulled like a pretty big turnaround to make the postseason. What was it that you saw in your team's effort that really just was an amazing moment to just kind of see the like that turnaround from your team?
Well, yeah, that year, that roster was it was special, to be honest with you. I think in a lot of ways, like we knew when we drafted the roster, we drafted like we knew we were in a rebuild. Like we did not have high expectations, and we were going with like full personality. We said, all right, we're just gonna go with like the best people we could put in a room, still go for talent, but the best human beings we can get. And so we went that direction, and we started off, and man, it was brutal. We were getting beat up and down. I think we hadn't won a 3v3 game for the first like tournament and a half, and it was like very painful to be a part of. And of course, like I'm so competitive, I'm trying to win. I'm watching hours of film just to come out and just get worked by teams. But the beautiful thing with that roster is like we just stuck together. And I know I say that, and of course, like you can look, and we made a bunch of trades that year. And I'll be honest, like we traded the guy we had drafted at 10th overall, our point guard, to the Wizards. He went over there and was really successful right away. The guy we got back, we loved. I love him. I still love him. He's probably, I would almost say, maybe my favorite player I've ever coached. But he got traded not but a month later. It was like we just knew we were in a position that we had to get the best players that we could at that point, because we had finally found that culture of like everyone's bought in, everyone's into this shared goal. And we ended up making a big move right before the trade deadline and picked up Unguardable and Jen in kind of a massive swing of the bat for us. And it clearly worked out. I mean, we were one of the best teams in 3v3 to finish the season. And in 5v5, we weren't an incredible team, but we were really gritty and really sound offensively and got things done. So yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, especially going out to Indy. I was playing in front of, I'm from Indy, so playing out in front of my family, and I have a big family, nieces and nephews, and everybody coming out and watching us, and we're winning. So it's the first postseason berth for myself that year, and we're really trying to capture that same feel to the room this year, and just a room that's just really together and just so iron focused on ourselves, very tunneled towards us, and not what's going on around the league and what other teams and markets, but is about ourselves.
How hard is it to kind of separate being a GM and a head coach? I feel like in a way you can kind of keep them together, but I feel like sometimes with a head coach, you're truly bonding with those players. And as a GM, you kind of have to solely like put those blinders on and be about the business. So has it been a little bit difficult kind of like being both, and how have you navigated through it?
I'll be honest, Kendra, that is the hardest part of my job.
Yeah.
100%. Making a roster change mid-season of a guy like you believe in these guys. You pick them in the draft. You make the selection. You believe in them. You're with them every day, 10 hours a day. You get to know them as a person, all these things. And the coach in you wants to believe in the player and the growth that they can have. You see the potential every day. You're witnessing it. And as a GM, you have to completely disconnect that part and just think pure asset point of view. How much value do you bring to the organization versus how much potential value this new potential guy coming in could, and that's really what it has to be. And it's super challenging, I'll be honest, and especially challenging when it's like, man, I don't even, it'd be different if I had an operations staff of 5 or 6 folks. Like, there's not even really people to bounce ideas off of without talking to a different teammate on the team, and then you're creating a natural separation between folks on the team, so it doesn't really work. And man, it's tricky. It's really tricky. Like I said, that season especially. I mean, we traded 3 of our guys during the season, and I think that's the most movement a team's ever had during a season. And it worked out somehow, some way. But man, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And it was hard on the team. Like the leader, I mean, Maddie, our leader at the time. Like obviously, we traded him this offseason to Miami, but it was really challenging on him, like mentally taxing. He gets to know this new kid, and we trade him, and then he brings a new guy in. He gets to know him and starting to really groom him into being like a more mature, better player. And then we trade him, and he's like, Jonah, I can't do this anymore. It's like, stop doing this. But he understood, and these guys all understand the business. And if you come to Orlando, I think you'll understand, and still appreciate your time here, because man, we really try to give these guys an incredible experience, and I think we do better or as good a job as any team in the league in that way.
Let's talk a little bit about Unguardable and just how much he has really, like, when you guys brought him on, it seemed like you guys just hit the ground running. What did he add, and what does he add to this team?
Yeah, this upcoming season will be his 3rd year with us, which is exceptionally hard to believe in my mind. So what he brings is a guy who's an elite scorer, right? When he first came in, that's what he was bringing. He's currently leading the league in scoring. He'd only played shooting guard, so we're converting him to point guard. And so, man, much different role. He's now got to manage the ball at all times, not turn it over. He's got to set up his teammates to run offense. And so that was a real challenge for him when he came in. And then in that offseason, him and I spoke a lot about him developing his game as a playmaker and setting up his teammates, because everyone's so worried about him because he's unguardable, man. I mean, this guy's an elite scorer. He's one of the best in the world at scoring the ball and putting it in the cup. So people are going to key in on him. So he realized that. He's really smart. He realized that. And so he was close to the league in assists this last season, and was able to do that. And then, but almost took his foot off the gas as a scorer. So now I'm like trying to get him to understand that balance is really hard, but you got to manage it a little better. And now he's finally going to be in a role for us where we're expecting him to be a leader, which is new for him. So I will say, if nothing else, man, it's so hard to be one of the best players in the world at anything in life. It's hard to be one of the best at it. And it says something about you when you're one of the best and you're still probably the hardest worker in the room. And that's what really sets people apart as an exceptional talent in the world. And I think he has that X factor to him where he's going to outwork anybody at what he does. And man, if that's the path he's on, he's going to continue to be on. He'll be incredible at every avenue of life that he decides to head down. So that's what I'd say about Josh. I mean, man, there's not enough you could say about his ability on the court. I personally think he's the best player in all of NBA2K. I would take him over anybody. Certainly talent wise, no question. I think he's the best, but he's getting there on the intangibles part. I mean, he's grown so much. He was such a kid. And I mean, man, we couldn't even run a wrap up the court, which is just like our guards crossing back then when he first came in. And now he's twirling the ball around and doing things that people never expect. So, yeah, he's grown a ton, and I expect even more growth from him, even though he's already what I would say is the best player.
I mean, as a coach, to know that he was able to be a part of that USA basketball national team, like for you, I mean, to see that you have a player represent Team USA, what was that feeling like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome, and he deserved every second of that moment, I think. And I'd love to see him like get even more minutes on that team and really like be the guy on that team, which I think he's got to be that next wave guy. Like he showed it this last week in the event we had in Boston. I thought he was. I think everyone would say he was probably the best player in the room this whole week and the weekend. And yeah, I mean he's just that guy, and I expect him to have his best season. I expect him to be just a full-fledged MVP candidate this year for us. And if not, it's because he's such a good and willing playmaker, and it's because he's just really not worried about his own individual stats and more worried about wins, which he really. For the man, again, it's so hard to find guys that are so good and work so hard and then don't even care about their own stat lines. Like they don't
Yeah.
exist in the world. I mean, as much as I hate to do the Kobe Bryant comparison, it almost is that way. Where like he'll just make the play. He doesn't mind. Even LeBron's the same way, but they'll just make the play and they'll outwork you. They're outsmart you. They're gonna out game plan you. And that's really what Josh has become and what I expect him to be.
So, how did it feel for you when the NBA 2K League recognized all your efforts to make you a finalist for Coach of the Year? How did it feel? And was it kind of like a check mark in a sense of like, all right, we're doing something, like we're doing something. How was that moment for you?
It was really cool. I'll be honest, I did not expect that at all. Like I didn't even I obviously knew it was coming out. I had such low expectations that it didn't even cross my mind. And at the time, like I was so concerned with rebuilding the roster, what we're going to do going into the off season, and we had just obviously had a really tough out in the 3v3 playoffs, and we thought we had a chance to win, and we lost on basically a last second play, and it was a whole thing. And so I wasn't even thinking about it. And so it came and I was just like, wow, this is awesome. But, I think it spoke to just the longevity we had during that season. We stuck together, man. Like that says a lot about a coach, I think, in general. Like if that environment happened in another city, I'd have been like, wow, they really like were the worst team in the league for 3 months and somehow won both play-in tournaments. So, I do think for that way it was earned, but man, I mean, I walked into that trade. I walked into that situation. Maddie was an incredible leader. May was a longtime vet for us, and we had smart guys in the room, and we have a great staff around. So it's as much a nod to them as myself. It truly, like I don't think it was more about me. I think it was more about the group, and it just spoke to maybe the fact that I was able to put the right heads in the room more than anything else.
So, how, as a coach, do you study? How do you grow? What do you kind of take away so that way like, okay, I like this, it didn't work, or I like what they're doing, that might work. So, how do you study and to make your team better?
It's a great question. And there's so many ways I could answer it because I'm obviously thinking as a coach and as a GM. So like I'm studying from like a prospect. I'm looking at what your game looks like. I'm watching you off ball. Are you positioned correctly? Are you, I think a lot of times, like this is a good example. If let's say I'm evaluating a shooting guard, how good are you at just working with 2 dribbles, 3 dribbles, late shot clock and getting a good look, making the right play? Are you able to then not only look for just yourself, are you able to then make a read off of the screen with 6 seconds on the shot clock, make the correct decision? I'm looking at so many things like that. Are you able to get back in transition on defense? Are you making the right rotations and things like this? And just thinking that way, right? And then as far as like scouting as a head coach, I'm looking. First of all, I'm watching it for any plays always because I want to steal your plays. I want to have the best playbook we could possibly have. And over the years, I think we've had some of the better, especially sideline and baseline plays of any team in the league. I really think I'm proud of the fact that I think we run a really, really cheeky sideline baseline sets often. So always looking for those, like what ways can we do it? And not just from NBA 2K, believe it or not. Like I'm watching high school basketball. When I'm back home, I'm watching college basketball all the time and seeing a lot of action on the baseline. And hey, what can we do? How can we create similar environments in NBA 2K? It's harder to run motion offense up the court. It's easier to run a quick hitter off the sideline. Those translate to NBA 2K. So it's so many things. So many things. What are teams doing to score uniquely? Certain players are, wow, he had 30 and 15. Like, what is he doing to get all that? So I'm watching him, how he's getting to his spots. And then maybe game planning against him because we might be playing against him that week. So it goes full circle because, I'm in kind of what really is 2 or 3 jobs, doing it all in one. And so, and it's not just me, the players have to put in that film work too. So it really, that not everything can be led by me in the film study because I'm, obviously torn multiple directions as well. So it's the full group that has to really be bought into that mindset. But man, it's so many things. It's hard to completely answer that question the right way. I hope I gave you what you wanted there.
No, yeah, you did, and I mean, after you saying that, I kinda wanted to ask, like, does head coach ever get time off, or, like, do you have an off season, or does the GM have to work around year round? Like, how does it work for you? Like, how do you balance your time?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's really not too bad. I obviously the evenings it's a lot of 2K streams and watching prospects and evaluating what we're going to do with our roster and things like that. But and then playing the game some during the day and in the evening as well, just till I'm acclimated with the new NBA 2K. There's always new nuances every year. The new NBA 2K comes out. There's nuances to the game that didn't exist prior. You have to be familiar with them, otherwise you're not going to be doing your team the full service you should be providing to them. So a lot of that, but the off season is much more relaxed than the season. So off season is normally about 5 6 months. This year it's a little shorter, and next year will be a little shorter as well, which is okay. But in season, I'll admit, Kendra, I'm going 60 70 hour weeks every week. Not a lot of time off. I mean, I'm known as one of the coaches that we will probably practice 7 days a week the entire
Wow.
season. We will have maybe 10 off days max the entire 5 6 months they're here. And so guys, when they come here, they're expecting that. To be honest, at that point, it's kind of my reputation. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. There's no question. But the off seasons are relaxed and able to still travel and go home. And the beautiful thing is, man, as long as I got access to an iPad or my phone, even like I can watch a Twitch stream and do it from anywhere. I could go to London and go watch a Twitch stream. So, yeah, and then obviously this offseason I had the opportunity to coach in the eFIBA event myself for Team Great Britain, which was a huge opportunity to grow as a coach because I'm obviously coaching less. I don't want to say this. It's the reality. Less skilled players than I probably
Yeah.
am on a 2K League stage, and forced to be much more hands on
Mm.
because of that, and also just become much more acclimated with the game. I've never spent 3 4 hours a day coaching during the off season, and so I feel like right now I have a better understanding of what the game looks and feels like than I probably ever have going into a season because I was forced to spend so much time. Not forced, but I wanted to spend so much time to help Team Great Britain try to succeed in that EFIBA event.
So it's always kind of like there's always room to grow for you. Like there's always an opportunity to get better. So I guess what is kind of your next goal? What would you like to see happen within the next couple of years? I don't want to say maybe we'll go with this year. What would you like to see happen for your team this year and maybe next year?
Yeah, I think I'll be honest. I think like we are absolutely a contender with the current roster we have, and at least the moves we're looking at making. And the draft is less than a month from now, and we have the 12th overall pick, and we got 4 guys that I think are incredibly talented. At that event in Boston, there were most of the 2K League players were there, and I truly think the best player there was on Magic Gaming, and the best center there was on Magic Gaming. Loki Godlike, which we traded for in the offseason. He was phenomenal in that event too. So I have high expectations for them, but I'll be honest, like we're taking it so much one game at a time. I think last year we went in with such high expectations coming off our crazy run in the ticket and steel, like we were talking about earlier, where that group was so exceptional and so well rounded. But I think we got humbled quick and didn't have the result we wanted. So we're really like full steam ahead. One thing I really obviously I want to win. I want to win a championship. We're a contender. I really want to win in 3v3 as much as anything. But I keep telling the guys like it's our beef year. We are beefing this year. Like we've always been the team that's kind of under the radar. We're really nice, and we like this is not who we are anymore this year. We're gonna have some edge to us every day. I want to play. I want to be angry. Like I want to be that kind of team. So that's what I would say. I want to play angry. I want to beat the brakes off some teams this year because people have loved beating the brakes off us when we've been down bad. So that's really how I feel about it, Kendra. Maybe it doesn't sound great, but it's true. And we have the team talent enough to do it. It's certainly the most talented group Magic Gaming has ever had, as far as just top to bottom stick skill in the game. We've never had this talented of a team before.
I mean, it sounds like a very like a coach that loves his team. I mean, that's what I got. I got like from what you just said, like you have the energy and the passion for it. So, real quick, the draft is here, right?
Yes, the draft is going to be in Orlando on
Yeah.
January 11th at Full Sail University.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How cool is it to know that like it's in our backyard? Like how cool is it to see that like the draft will be here? And does it kind of give you a little bit more like, I don't want to say momentum, but just a cool energy to know that like you guys are going in. I guess feeling a little bit more secure, or that sense of like that, that's kind of cool that it's here.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I mean, like it's always good to have these kinds of events in your backyard. Don't have to travel anywhere. I get to sleep in my own bed. All those things are beautiful, of course. But we may have some guest appearances at the draft, so stay tuned for when 12th overall is on the clock. Assuming that's where we land, who knows? I'm GM on the street, so I'm working deals, trying to see what I can maybe still do here. But we may have some guest appearances, so stay tuned for those. It should be pretty fun.
That's really, really cool. So, for a kid who is going to be watching this and is a gamer, I mean, one, let's take it from a standpoint of how can they go into the professional route? What advice would you give them so they could be a player on a team one day? And we'll start from there.
Yeah, so if we're talking just generally in esports, I think like the first thing is understanding like when and how to take yourself seriously as a competitor. So obviously, like you have to be immensely talented to even be in consideration to be a professional player in any capacity. And even as a coach, probably still have to have some still like really high base talent level in these games. And so it starts there, right? And then from there, like how do you actually improve as a player? And I think this is where a lot of potential competitors get lost. Is it's easy to just load up, play the game, load up, play the game, you're done, right? Are you really intentionally thinking about what you're doing wrong in your losses? Like I'm a big back in my college days, I was a big League of Legends player, and I actually climbed all the way up to the Diamond 5 rank, which is like the top 1% of players in that game, which was really hard. I'll be honest, like way harder for me than NBA 2K. And it's, man, if you're not watching your VODs back and like understanding, the difference between, hey, I made a good macro play, but a bad micro play here, then what are you doing as a player, as a true competitor? And then I would say like your brand is important, like especially in my space as an NBA 2K League, coach and GM. Like I'm watching everything you're doing on social media. I promise you, you show up for example, you're showing up at these live events and you're screaming and cursing. Believe me, I notice if you're doing that. If you're acting a way that I don't think would be like a good representation of the Orlando Magic's brand, then we would not move in that direction when it's that time. So things like that. I mean, and obviously it's so much more than this to be a top level competitor in anything. It takes so much dedication to what you do. But also, I think the biggest thing for that age group, because it's a really tough age group, because you're talking like you really realize, hey, I'm really good at 14, 15, and you're like, I'm really good at this. Your priorities still have to be so important. I made such a conscious effort at that age because I was such a game head at that age, and I was still an athlete and did these things and salutatorian in my class in high school and all this stuff. Your priorities are so important. I made such a conscious effort to get my homework done in such a timely manner because I wanted to get on the game. So I wasted no time. It's like I'm getting home from school, I'm grinding my homework, I'm on the game. Boom, we're done. Because I just wanted to get on as quick as possible. And that doesn't mean phone it in. It means do it well so you don't have to do it again. So yeah, it's so many things, but I think most of the part is just you have to take yourself seriously as a competitor. Otherwise, like, where are you going to end up? If you're just loading up every day and just playing with your buddies and doing this, like, you're never going to probably get there unless you're one of the most naturally gifted folks, which they exist. But yeah.
And as a coach, like how does someone get into that world? Because I mean, you also are in that 1% where like it's very hard to get to where you're at. And I feel like not too many people know, but like for someone who, potentially would love to be a head coach one day of a team, what all does it take to be in that position?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned, you certainly need your own base level skill in the specific game you're going to work. I think you also need just an immense knowledge of the scene, the history of the scene, and the game in general. Like so many small details about NBA 2K exist that people don't even realize. The different animation that does this and chains into this, and like why certain things happen on the game is so unique and specific to each individual title of game. I could speak to League of Legends and Overwatch specifics and details too, and so you need to know them at a high level. And then I would just say like, you need to be a leader, right? I think like that's a base skill level for any coach. I don't think you're going to find many coaches out in life that aren't natural leaders. And so what form of leadership do you identify with? I think like be intentional about understanding your leadership style. And like I would say mine is servant leadership. Like I very much, you're going to see me grinding away at the facility as many hours as you every single day, and I'm going to come in every day, and you can tell I went home and watched film after I left too. So like you're gonna know based on my level of dedication, this is where my head is at 24/7. And so if you're not able to bring that, then I like to think I inspire that from my team. So like you have to be that all the time. Like you can't just be it sometimes. And so it's really unique, but you need that I would say that edge to you. Like what kind of leader are you? Be intentional about that kind of being that kind of leader, and then bring a unique skill set. I think in so many ways, like especially in my field, like so many folks are so they aren't even, no one uses analytics. No one uses shot charts. Like, I mean, these things happen on the NBA level. It's such an immense speed that everything's at this point is automated at that for these things we're talking about. In NBA 2K, they are certainly not. If someone approached me and they had this immense, compilation of statistics and analytics based around our league and sport, I think I would be awestruck to a point where I would be forced to take them seriously as a potential coach, like literally because of your skill set you're bringing in this specific way. That's just an example, right? You don't have to be an analytics nerd, but be something else then if you're not that. Like have your own unique skill set that I think that applies. And as you can see in that, take that example from real sports. Like there's so many, like there are defensive minded coaches that live for defense, and that's what they do. And there are offensive genies that just come up with sets in basketball that they can draw up a set that they've never even thought of or looked at or known on the board in a quarter second, and they just know what to do. Be that in that certain way. So, and you don't have to be all of it. Just be one of them and lean into your skill set.
Oh, that's really good information. So from that, I mean, what are your hopes and dreams, or like where do you think NBA 2K League can go? Like how much growth, how much more growth do you want to see within this league?
Well, sure. I mean, I want to see all the growth. Give me all the growth. It's a really tough question to answer. I'll be completely honest in just saying, like, our league is not the biggest esports league in existence. It's certainly not. I think, when the league was initially pitched, there were some big, bold ideas that we just haven't gotten to yet. And I think we're really still working towards getting to a lot of these. And I think the NBA 2K League, will be only as big as the NBA 2K game allows us to be. And we're really working on greater retail integration with the NBA 2K retail game. And that's really where our core audience will always exist. And so still building that fan base there and doing these things. But man, it's hard to believe a world where the NBA 2K League doesn't use NBA players more in the future. I think you're going to see this. I think just naturally you're going to see it. It's hard to believe a world where the NBA 2K League isn't a success in the future. Like NBA 2K game is a massive title. Take-Two is a massive developer, and I mean, from last I heard, there's 2 million daily active users in this game. It's a big fan base, very, very passionate fan base. So I'd love to see the 2K League become almost more everything local in markets and NBA cities. I'd love to see it that way. I'd love to see more NBA player involvement. I'd love to see maybe some NBA player likeness in the game. Like maybe, hey, instead of me having Unguardable with his own character, like maybe Unguardable is still Unguardable, but his character is Vince Carter today on the Magic, and he's able to go, like, maybe, like, there's got to be ways we can include more NBA likeness, because it just makes the game so unique, and will create so many more unique skill sets and pathways to success as a team. So there's so many answers to that question. That's the one I'll give. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see the league become, of course, bigger and greater. And, I'd love it to get to the point where, we have a staff of operations, and it becomes like a legitimate, basketball operation. Is really my dream, is like, man, let's lean into the basketball side. I'm not sure that'll happen, but that would be my dream.
Those are awesome dreams, and I feel like those are things that can be very realistic if it's like, put into fruition. So for this webinar, we love also talking about mental health and making sure that we, continue to focus a lot on that. So for you, do you have anything that you can share about how you focus on your mental health so that way you can be the best in your role?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, I'll speak to my story in this a little bit, because, when I was like 19, 20, man, all I did was the game. That's all I played was the game. And so I was not a fulfilled human being. And I'll be honest, like like I mentioned, I was an athlete in high school. This happens to everyone. The freshman 15, right? It was more like the freshman 115 for me. So I was like a 320-pound guy. Lost all that weight. It was just like, I think I realized that working out and being healthy was just such a huge help for my mental state. And so I started to take it really seriously. And that would be my biggest answer. I'm sure that's everyone's biggest answer. It's like, go outside, go on a walk,
Yeah.
be intentional about going on a run. I was on a run 10 minutes before I hopped on the camera here, actually. So it was a beautiful day, 65 degrees in Florida here. So in December. So I was like, why not? And what we do as an organization for our players, and trying to be intentional about helping folks in their own mindfulness, is we have our team stays down in Lake Nona, and there's a Lake Nona Performance Club, which is about a 6-7 minute walk from here. And in that club, they get access to the gym, access to fitness classes and all these things. There's also the mind body zone, Chopra mind body zone that exists. And there's, meditation classes, yoga classes, that they're guided. There's sound healing. There's so many things that exist in that realm that are so beneficial. And we had a player last year that, man, he went daily, and went to meditation and yoga classes every single day. And he found it very beneficial for himself and those things. And then we also we have access to this company called Nestry, which is a brain training, neurological brain train company that, man, you literally get wired up. You're looking at the screen and it's training your brain, and trying to create healthier connections between pathways in your brain to enhance performance, but also enhance mental health. And so it's an incredible tool. And the CEO and founder of that company has an incredible story of like, hey man, like I was a concussed football player. I was told I was never going to have the same brain, and I did not take that as an option. Like that was not an option for me. And his mental health wasn't great and all this. And this company is, from his perspective, changed his life. So we try to provide all this to the guys, as well as living in a really healthy area. It's called Medical City for a reason here in Lake Nona. But so yeah, all these things. And Kendra, I'll just say, like, I've lost 50 pounds since last July. Like these resources are real. Like they're so real. Like I'm going every day and taking advantage of them. And so I'm hoping the team, especially this team coming up, will do the same thing. But all these things are so important. And the last thing I'll say is like, last two things I'll say. Also, like, it doesn't need to be physical fitness. It could be reading. It could be intentionally avoiding screen time. You're not just going from playing the game for 4 hours straight to then getting on TikTok. You're going to take a break, whether it is a walk outside with your dog or in the sun or reading a book, whatever it may be. The last thing I'll say is esports and gaming is such an intellectual sport. If your mind is not right, it will impact and affect performance ultimately. I mean, you may not realize it may be subconscious, but it will impact performance. You have to feel good to play good, and that is what esports in most sports, and that's life really, but especially you're going to notice the results in an esports space.
I am so mind blown that you guys have these things at your fingertips, because I would love to know, just like how to train my brain a little bit more to just stay focused on things. And that is so cool that you guys are giving them those resources to do that. And I definitely agree with the screen time. And I have I have it on my phone now too, where like at a certain amount of time, my phone, like all the apps that like I normally am on for hours, we're just like stop. And of course you can do you really want to continue? And I'm like, yeah, Kendra, you got to focus on something else today. So I totally agree with less screen time. But wow, like those are all really good options about taking care of your mental health. And I mean, thank you for sharing that. My last question for you is, how can people get in touch with you? How can people follow you? And I guess Twitter, TikTok, wherever, name all your links that people can like hit you up on and follow you.
Yeah, on Twitter and Instagram, I'm just Jonah Edwards _ and that's all the only places you're going to find me. Like I said, I avoid TikTok because I know I'll be addicted. Of course I will. It's so addicting. It's so much fun. So I just don't have it. And then follow Magic Gaming. That's what I'll say. Follow Magic Gaming on Twitter and Instagram. That's really where you're going to see a lot about the team and myself, interviews, speaking about what's going on with the group, and where the real fun is.
Well, thank you, Jonah, for being a part of this webinar. And this has been another edition of Magic Gaming Esports Academy webinar series presented by Florida Blue. So thank you for watching. And don't forget to follow Magic Gaming, like Jonah just said, on Twitter and on Instagram. And make sure you tune in for our next episode in a couple weeks. Thanks.